Welcome to QCC's Face the Region. Face the Region is produced by Quinsigamond Community College to assist our region in attaining educational, economic, and personal prosperity. Good morning and welcome once again to Face the Region here at Quinsigamond Community College on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfil, and today we're at the Disabilities Services Department, I guess you would call it, with Terry Rodriguez, who is the Associate Director of Disability Services, and Christy Proctor, the Director of Disability Services. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You guys have been looking forward to this, I know, I can tell you. It's great anticipation. So give me a quick overview of the kind of services you provide for both students and faculty here at QCC.
Okay. We work with students across disability spectrum, so we see all disabilities on campus. For example, some colleges, anything that has to do with mental health goes through their counseling office. That actually comes through our office. So we work with students who have medical physical disabilities, who have mental health or emotional disabilities, learning disabilities, autism spectrum disabilities. So we see everybody here in our office.
Right, actually, and come to think of it, you know, my perception of disability services, I sort of think of a ramp, you know what I mean, like access issues, but it's so much more than that.
Well, accessibility takes many forms because for some people it would be some of the more traditional physical mobility impairments, but now we have different types of barriers that we're really looking as an office to alleviate or to help students get around and to accommodate them in. So for an example, we may have a student who needs assistance taking part in a club on campus. We may need to look at programmatic accommodations for a student who may need an accommodation to reach or to overcome a testing barrier that might be for a certification or a major requirement. So we look at a lot of different things in that are more invisible barriers, but they're definitely there.
Right, and I was going to say too that the laws governing these type of things there must be a giant.
It's not the laws, it's the legal findings
Right.
and decisions that have made them go like this. Yes. No, but the law pretty much has been the same with some revisions since 1992 when ADA was passed. But
Right.
everything, even from, we still use the 1973 Voc Rehab Act. So the most progressive movement in the law, though, has been since 2008 with the revision to ADA, which includes all the technology interfacing and making sure the internet and access to the internet and readable files and everything that's posted on the internet, whether it's a video, a PDF, are closed captioned, have descriptors, and are available in large print. So that's where accessibility is really coming and hitting hard against digital content.
Right, so any idea, a ballpark figure of how many different services you provide out of this office?
We've never counted. Now, I'd say for each student it's different, so I guess we
right.
could say over 800.
And again, there's specific requirements for each specific
Right.
scenario.
Yeah.
Well, you meet one student with a disability, you've met one student with a disability.
Yes.
So we look at each student in a holistic manner as they walk through our door. They may have a diagnosis that is a common diagnosis, but how that interplays for them in the actual academic setting is what we have to focus on. There are some common accommodations for folks across the board. For example, it could be extended testing, it could be copies of classroom notes. Those are more universal ways to help students through the process and provide access. But as we work with a student, we really do spend a lot of time looking at them as an individual, and and it goes beyond, like you said, just the accommodations. We're teaching students how to talk to professors if they have a hard time or anxious about talking to professors. We teach them how to navigate the campus and how to be a college student on top of everything else that it's going to take them to be successful here.
So physiological, psychological, and it's all covered by your department. So give me a typical scenario. Well, how would a student who's got a situation that they need help with, how do they access you, and how do they determine what they have that needs your help? I guess. It's kind of a crazy way to ask
I know.
it.
There's no straight path.
Why don't you answer as if it were a perfect scenario, and I'll take the unperfect scenario. So,
I think to preface this, QCC works with students from the right out of high school, traditional age college student to the non-traditional, you and I all coming back to college after years and years of a previous career or stay at home with your children type scenarios. And of course, let's package this when some of us in the room were in high school, disability looked very different. And so now you come back in the door 25, 30 years later, now you realize, oh, I did get help in math or I did get help with reading, but I was never labeled with anything. And it's been 30 years since I've been in high school. So we have the non-traditional age student who comes back through the door going, I know I hated school and I know it was because I was not good at this, and maybe now they're being diagnosed as an adult with attention deficit disorder or with a learning disability. Now that the field is much more robust than it was, say, 30 years ago. Ideally, we see students, they start with us because they know they're going to need an accommodation, which means before they even take the placement test, they're going to need an accommodation for placement. If it be a calculator is not a common thing you get on the placement test, you actually have to have an accommodation for that. Or if you need a reader or a scribe, whatever it might be. So ideally, we see them before they even start the placement test process so we can make sure they have access to the test with what they need.
and then the unfortunate scenario that happens a lot of times is that students will start taking classes and they'll fail a test or two, and then a faculty member will have a conversation with them, explore some life circumstances, and find out in the past they may have received educational support services, and then they'll refer the student over to us. So, you know, they eventually make their way to us. We wish we had everyone from the get-go, but sometimes people aren't aware of our services, but faculty, staff, we have people who refer folks to us all the time, and it's still a great way, even though it's later than we would want, at least we're still providing it when it's needed at a critical time, if they're either not doing well in a class and want to improve, or didn't realize that they need to use their accommodations to level the playing field so that they have access to the curriculum and to testing.
And I would imagine occasionally the student doesn't know they have this difficulty. Is that sometimes the case as well? Or
sometimes yes, and sometimes it's new. For example, say if someone's been in a snowboarding accident and now they have a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
That absolutely is going to change how they manage academics depending on where their brain was injured. So you have people who've been in car accidents or some horrific situation where now they have a medical physical disability that they have to learn their way through. So we see adults, young adults and adults that's their scenario.
Yeah, it's hard when you've acquired a disability. There's a whole different level of need, but we're trying very much to be responsive to everybody as they come in the door, whatever that looks like.
Right. We're chatting with Christy Proctor and Terry Rodriguez, the Associate Director of Disability Services and the Director of Disability Services here at QCC on Face the Region. Take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfel, and we're here at Quinsigamond Community College in the Disability Services Department and chatting with Terry Rodriguez and Christy Proctor. Terry, the Associate Director of Disability Services, and Christy Proctor, the Director of Disability Services. In the first segment, ladies, we kind of talked about the differences between a traditional student or a young person coming out of high school, and of course the non-traditional student coming back after many years, perhaps in the workplace or raising families. Big difference there, huh? And do you actually sort of keep those in two different categories?
No. We're very universally designed.
We wouldn't separate that since their classrooms, everybody's in the same classroom together.
Oh, no, what I meant is your approach to providing the services you provide.
No. I would say that on our main campus, we have 5 full-time coordinators who have that relationship with their students. And then in Southbridge, we have our wonderful coordinator, Tammy, who deals with everyone in Southbridge. And while we have 6 full-time staff working with the office, some of them have their preferences or their areas that they specialize in, but primarily everyone's a generalist and can help with anyone. So that, say, if Tom is out today, Kim will see his student. If Kim's out today, Annie will see the student. So we really do have a lot of cross-training as a discipline, and I think the professionalism of our staff is that we are constantly sharing, we're making sure everyone knows about students. We have a real good communication pattern set up where we're checking in, keeping updated, so that if there are students who are coming in and we're not going to be there, we let everyone else know. So we're really trying to cover everyone. But I will say there are comfort levels with disability. For example, I would not want to portray myself as being an expert with a specific medical disability, because that's not my background. So I would help as much as I can, but I would always defer to that coordinator who has the knowledge. So we really do have, not one of us can stand strong alone, but all together we are a strong office, thanks to the strengths and disciplines that in the background we bring to the office.
With strong personalities, I might
Oh
add.
yes, we all have strong personalities.
I think I may have posed the question kind of in an awkward way. You had mentioned during the break, you were talking about how with non-traditional students it's more of the accessibility, and with the high school students through the high school visit days it's more of a success support system. Can you explain that a little bit?
I think the first step is helping. We love and enjoy bringing high school students to campus. They're typically exploring the concept of college. Many of those students have never even considered college as a possibility. So it's really nice to bring them to campus so they can open their eyes to realize, I might be able to do this. And then we support that and say, college looks very different. The day is very different. I always like to start with, we don't have bells here. The bells don't ring to move you to class, which is like, wow, or I don't have to be there at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
But part of that process is the way the law is written for the K-12 system. It's about success. So they go through a very different process in terms of how they're diagnosed and how their accommodations are provided. Whereas in college, it's about access. So we have to level the playing field, for lack of a better word, for students coming to college. But with that comes lots of information that is different from high school to college. Everything from parent involvement, which we spend a lot of time actually educating parents about the differences between high school and college, to their relationship with professors, to accessing services, what the student's going to be in charge of when they get here, versus mom's calling us and saying she can't take a test today because I didn't do her note cards. We've seen lots of different scenarios. Just one of my favorites. One of my favorites.
Okay.
So I think that's really the big difference. Was when we bring them to campus, we want them to see students in the cafeteria. We want them to show them around the campus so they can see actual college students doing college things. Plus, we have to dispel the myth of what Hollywood is portrayed as college life. So, and especially in a community
Animal
college.
House?
Yeah. And that's not even what they reference
No,
anymore.
I'm sure it's not. I just dated
It's worse
myself.
than that.
It's worse than that.
But I think that when they come on campus, and we have great partners in the high school setting in Worcester, in Mendon at Nipmuc, and definitely at Tantascwa. They bring their students as a regular program to our college, and we have a morning set aside for them. And in addition to sharing really some important information about what our services look like and what the law says and what their rights are and how it changes, we have a really robust speaker panel. And the students who are here now are actually some of the best advertisement, if I may, on why a student needs to know their disability, know themselves, and be a self-advocate. Because they're going to share their stories of what it's like to be a college student and advice they would give to them as high school students that they wish they had had. And having that voice from our students is very powerful. It makes more of an impact on the high school students than any of us could ever do. And our students really want to help other students. And it builds leadership skills, it builds speaking skills in our students. And you can see how it's a mutual benefit for all the students to be either in the audience asking the questions and getting their questions answered that they don't want to ask anybody else, and our students who are willing to share that information.
Yeah, Christy and I typically say we'll answer anything, and we will. There's really not a question we haven't heard, but the students have much better answers.
Yes, they do.
They really do.
Yeah.
So again, now these, when you're reaching out to the high schools, and I guess what's different back when we were in school, there didn't seem to be so much delineation, or what the word I'm looking for, as far as what's considered a disability. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Either, somebody was confused, or do you know what I mean?
Then we all have a disability. I guess.
There really wasn't a
We were all
definition.
hyper, right?
Yeah.
So has that changed dramatically over the years?
Well, I'd like to think that because of the medical field and brain science, we know so much more about so many different types of hidden disabilities as well as the visible.
That's what I mean.
But I'd also like to think that as a culture, we're much more accepting of disability. It's not as stigmatized as it once was. Many people are open about talking about their disability. And in the K-12 environment, you have a lot more inclusion, which has really helped attitudinally with people's perception of what disability means.
Right.
So we do have people on our campus who are very open about their disability, and we have other people who are very confidential. It may have to do with more of their life's experiences, but we're very supportive of whichever path they choose to take, because that information really is theirs to share, not ours. We support them in whichever way they want that to look like. And for some students, it starts out being very confidential, but as we build trust and they get to know us, then they become more open. And it's really neat to see people embrace their disability before graduating or before transferring on to the next institution, because I just think of how developmentally they're just really becoming their own person, and their abilities, they're being defined by, not their disability.
And I would imagine too that along with that, the confidential aspect, are there a lot of legal angles to that? I would imagine it must just be
Well, the
really
laws governing
complicated.
higher ed are very different than laws governing K-12. And, our favorite example is FERPA protects, as the Family Educational Protection Rights Act, protects students from anybody just gathering their information from the campus. So that translates for us to parents when they call us to say, did Johnny go to class today? We can't share any information about Johnny unless Johnny says, I need my mom or dad dialed in on this. And that's the huge change for parents.
Yes, the privacy.
We are chatting with Christy Proctor and Terry Rodriguez of the Disability Services here at Quinsigamond Community College here on Face the Region, and we shall continue with a really eye-opening conversation here about the services they provide when Face the Region continues in just a couple of minutes here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Welcome back to Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN, where every week we talk about the great stuff happening at QCC and some of the great services provided by the various departments. And this is a major one we're talking about today, Disability Services. We've got Terry Rodriguez, the Associate Director of Disability Services, and Christy Proctor, the Director of Disability Services. We talked a lot in the first couple of segments about the various services you provide. But you guys are big into events, I hear, and stress-free at that.
Yes, we do lots of programming. We initially started doing programming just as a way to support our students. As time has gone on, for some of those events, we let everybody come in because everybody benefits. So one of the first events we have always held, and I think we're on our 13th or 14th year, is our annual breakfast here, where we invite high school partners and the agency and community agency partners. And that's going to be held March 13th and next year. Hopefully it won't be a snow day, but we have about 80 people attend. And we, once again, have students present. We have people from the high schools present. And we really talk about ways that we can improve transition services between agencies, high schools, and QCC. And a lot of times, there's a lot of people at that table that you can network with too. So we really see how students benefit when we're all communicating at our level. So that's one programming event we've been doing for a long time. But one of our more recent events we've been doing is we have what we call winter wellness workshops, or stress-free events. And that's where people have really hopped on and enjoyed what we do, from not only the students with disabilities, the staff, the faculty. Everybody loves when we have stress-free events. So Terry, why don't you describe that?
So this year we're partnering with Student Life. We have a new director, so it's been a great chance for us to expand the program up 2 days. So November 29th and November 30th, we have invited Pause for People back to campus, which is the therapy dogs from Tufts University. They'll come out, and a cat. We don't ever want to forget Autumn. Just therapy cat. And they come to campus. And I think one of the best parts about when Pause does come, either in the winter or in the spring, is first of all, students will go in and just give all their love to the animal, but then what comes out of their mouths, the information you learn about what's happening for them is really quite incredible. You can start a conversation with a student about either being stressed about finals or they need information. It really does become a nice referral piece of the puzzle. But at the same time, it's really great to see some of our students whose cultures are not dog friendly, for them to go up to a 75-pound Newfoundland and make a friend. So it's a real cross-cultural event for some of our students. But really, when the dogs are here, people are like, the dogs are here! People they'll ask certain professors, please let us out of class, we get to go see the dogs.
Yeah. And it's not just the dogs, we also have like knitting, we do the coloring, we do aromatherapy, we bring in a massage therapist, and we provide complimentary massages. We have a Reiki person. And
one of our professors.
This is more like a spa.
Yes, it is. It's a spa.
One of our professors, Jean Kennedy, she's big on mindfulness on campus, been working with mindfulness, trying to embed it into our community. And this year she's already confirmed that she'll bring her Tibetan singing bowls over. We'll do a whole sound therapy with students too.
Really?
So it's really outside the box, but it's really fun. It's creative. We make sure it's accessible. Anyone can go to any of the stations. We try to provide spa water and, just trying to get all the senses, making this a very sensory experience.
There will be hot chocolate for us who need,
yes,
chocolate
if it's a cold
therapy
day.
too.
And then in Southbridge, what Tammy does in Southbridge is she uses a lot more of the community partners, and they'll come and have tables, events, similar thing, the massage therapist. This year she's attempting to reach out to an animal rescue league, and instead of having dogs, they hope to have kittens. So hopefully people will walk away adopting a kitten that day. So, so it looks very different on the campuses, but we all enjoy when we have these types of events. And those are usually towards the end of the semester. At the beginning of this semester, though, and then at the end of last semester, we had a visit from Angel Hair Alpacas, our favorite alpaca farm from North Grafton, Massachusetts, with Maureen and Jay. And when the alpacas come, that's a big event because no one has really ever seen an alpaca. And the number one question is that a llama and does it spit? So it's a great way for any student, though, at the beginning of the semester to just kind of go with the crowd and kind of start to socialize a little bit, feel included. Yeah, meet us, because we're always saying, hi, how are you? It's a great way to break the ice and start forming some connections and friendships with other people who are all gathered around. And I have to tell you, those alpacas get so many selfies. Everyone posts, their photo. It's a big Facebook day at QCC,
and it's
an Instagram day.
It's another example of no one's ever met an alpaca, so they do have these great questions, and Jay will sit there and he will tell you any unknown fact about alpaca
Yes.
that you might need to know. And what was really nice this year is because we did it in September at the top of school with our new president. President Prajaha came out, and he actually mingled and met many students, and I think he stayed around for a good 45 minutes. It wasn't like a photo op and go.
Right,
he
right.
really was engaged with students. So that was
He
lovely.
wanted to meet the alpacas.
Yeah.
They're like celebrities when they come to campus. People are waiting for them to be unloaded. And it's
We have
just
a couple of students that can I please walk them.
Yeah. They really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned something a couple of minutes ago, and the amount of diversity here at
Yes.
QCC is huge. And does that provide does your department provide services, just aligned to that challenge? Of just, all the various backgrounds and globalization of the campus.
and it's really something we are always aware of, because that language barrier and
Sure.
communication barrier comes up quite frequently, and it's something we take into consideration, because what they might have had for documentation may no longer exist as they've moved to camp to refugee status now, and they're here. What has the school provided? I mean, it's just such a mishmash. So we're trying to piece together and really come up with a plan for them to have access here based mostly on their story, because you don't have that documentation. Or if you do have documentation, it's only maybe from the time they came to America on. So we're very aware of that diversity. And we do have people who are on their 5th language. English is their 5th language. They were doctors someplace else, but now they have a disability and they have trauma from post-traumatic stress disorder. So, and yet here they are surviving, and they're going to learn English. I mean, there's just so much resiliency and self-determination in so many of our students. It's actually very inspiring to work with.
I'm sure it is, and you guys are doing such great work. We're almost out of time, so I just real quickly, if a student needed to get a hold of you, what's the best way? What's the pathway for them to get involved?
Depend on their communication preference. Right. So you can call us. We have our regular college line. If you can just call the college and ask for disability services. We have a video phone. So for those folks who are deaf and hard of hearing and need to sign, we have a video phone. We also have. You can email us. You can stop by. You can stop us in the hallway.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about accessibility.
Yeah.
Yes, and we try to be as open and getting people in the door as welcoming as possible. And I think our friendly office really sets a standard that we treat you with respect, we welcome you, and we celebrate you.
Great. Terry and Christy, thanks so much for being with us here
You're
on
welcome,
Face
Zach.
the Region, and continued success and continue the great work you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. That'll do it for this episode of Face the Region. Join us again next week, same time here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN.
This has been Quinsigamond Community College's Face the Region. Join us again next weekend on AM 830 WCRN.